spirituality, all the things that a society needs to function. Asar is going around the world and done this, right? And then he comes home. This is where the prodigal son comes into the story. But they interpret it differently with the prodigal son. Asar, you know, it wasn't a prodigal son, but they mixed and matched the different stories on the walls of Kamene. Here Asar comes back, and his brother Set is jealous that Asar's been given all this glory, and there's going to be a big party for him. You know, and everybody's going to just worship this man Asar. So he and the 72 Seba'u, which are the forces of evil, they plot to get rid of Asar. So they build this beautiful coffin, sarcophagus, that's lined in gold and jewels and gems and diamonds, and it's beautiful. Here's where Cinderella comes in. See, they take all our stories, but they contort them, they contaminate them. They know that the size of this sarcophagus, or this coffin, only fits Asar. But they say to the community, let's have a party. Anyone that can fit in the coffin, you can get in. And so like most people, they all try to get in, and some too big, some too small, some too wide, some too thin. But then they get to Asar. He's the last one. They say, come on, Asar, try. Everybody. He said, I don't need that, because what he's saying is godliness. He don't need all those jewels and gems. No, I don't need to get in the coffin. I don't care. I don't want to go in there. He said, well, come on, man. Just try. Everybody. This is the temptation of Jesus and the devil in the desert. Just try. For that one moment, Asar gives in. And he gets into the coffin. That's when they shut it closed. You see, that one moment that even the very best of us give in to temptation is the moment that the devil is waiting for us to open ourselves up to evil. But if Asar hadn't decided, they ain't going to wait, I'm not going in that coffin, I don't care, I don't want it, take it, we'll find somebody else or give it to charity or something. But he tried. And that goes to show all of us that even in those that are most pure, that try to be, we're human beings. And it's capable of making those errors. But Ma'at says, reciprocity says, what goes around comes around. Nature has no mercy. Nature has no preference. If you do the wrong thing, you're going to pay the price according to nature's rules. You've been a wonderful person all your life, but you just messed up. You're going to pay the price. That's the way it is. And that's the story of us as a people. That is what helped us build pyramids, but that's what also put us on the plantation. That unconditional love. The ethic of mer. Mer. Mer is beyond agape. You know, agape is said to be a concept that it is a love supreme. It's a love that goes beyond love. Mer goes beyond agape. Mer is a love that's speechless. There are no words for this love. In fact, don't we say it? I love you so much, words could never explain. And that is because there are certain emotions that have no words. They're action-oriented entities that we do. And that type of love is what nature taught us. Going back to what you said, Minister Brown, about nature. Nature is very important. Nature tells us everything. Nature gives a love that goes beyond words. And so as human beings, as we identified with nature, and we got into nature, we became part of nature, then we also took on the love concept of nature. What we did not know is that there was another nature, an ice nature, that did not know that love. In fact, that nature was very hostile to them. It was very hateful. You mess up, you're going to be gnashing your teeth. Okay? The African love, the Creator, no matter how you may make a mistake, you'll pay for your mistake. But it's not like that.
That's what they call grace.
Grace, exactly. Grace is another word that we need to use more of. Grace. You know, grace is tough love. Grace is, you have to pay the price, but I still love you. It's when your mama beats your butt, but then caressed your head at the end. She wanted you to know. You're going to pay the price, but baby, I still love you.
It's going to hurt me more than it hurts you.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, many times it does.
Yeah, okay.
And it does. It does. So, it's interesting how we do this. First, I want to thank Minister Brown and TransAtlantic Productions and Afro Queens, Brother Greg and Sister Yana for making this 6-part series possible. When I was first asked to consider doing this piece on West Africa, I had never, I had to work, but we have to go back to the origin of the human family in Africa. There's no way that we could ever understand the story of West Africa if we didn't go back to the origin. Because the people that are now in Ghana and Mauritania and Niger and Benin, the word is autochthonous. Autochthonous. A-U-T-O-O-C-T-H-O-N-O-U-S. Autochthonous. Which means that you are indigenous to the land from whence you sprang. Ghanaians did not come from Ghana. They were not born in Ghana. I'm speaking about originally. There's only one place on the planet where all human beings come from. And that is the Great Lakes region that encompassed the countries we today call Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Congo, and Southern Africa. One of the first things that we have to do is get rid of this image of the countries that I just called. We're dealing with a post-1885 Africa when we have names for the countries. Up until 1885, when the Berlin Conference took place, was when Europe had a conference and carved Africa up. Now, it's interesting because that's later going to lead to World War I and World War II and what we're facing today. However, just to be clear, the Berlin Conference, 1885, carved up Africa. It gave England, countries like Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, where the predominant language is English. It gave Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, Senegal, to the French. Mozambique, other countries, to the Portugal. Okay? Southern Africa wasn't in this yet. But eventually they would get Southern Africa. Cecil Rhodes was in what we today call Zimbabwe. Yesterday it was called Rhodesia. Germany had what we call Namibia today. But this conference carved these countries up. And they were carved up around economical and political reasons. So that Europe could get an equal share of the wealth of Africa. Italy was left out. They said, don't touch Liberia, because Liberia has the rubber. Ain't nobody getting that. That's why Liberia stayed independent. They really weren't independent. It's just that they were not taken over by any one country because of the wealth of rubber. And then you'd have to look at the technological advancements of that time, late 1800s going into 1900, where rubber, cars and trucks, and they found the wealth of rubber. So the only other country they could get was Ethiopia. Now that's going to lead to World War II. But it's going to lead to them getting beat in the Battle of Ottawa in 1896. The Italians were beat. They don't like to talk about when they were beat. They beat them bad. They were beaten as badly by the Ethiopians in 1896 under Menelik II as the Haitians beat the French, the Spaniards, and the Americans in 1804. But I bring this up because it's important that when I say countries, that I'm saying it for another reason. I'm not so much saying it because of the geographic location. I'm calling it the country because it's larger than that. And one of the countries that's going to become important for the end of this class and next class is going to be Mauritania. It's going to become very important. And as we get into it, you'll understand what I mean. The other thing that I want to talk to you about is episodic and corrective history. To know the difference between episodic and corrective history. Episodic history takes episodes out of corrective history and teaches them. For instance, when they teach you about Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, and they call them the great West African kingdoms, that's episodic. But because I've had this opportunity for 6 classes, we're going to do it correctively, where I'm going to show you some things as it relates to West Africa. Where did that great West African kingdom come from? Because when they teach episodic history, particularly like in Egypt, when they teach the dynastic period, the reason why you can get caught up in believing that aliens built the pyramids, or believing that Europeans built the pyramids and the temples and they were the original Egyptians, is because Egypt has been presented to you episodically. Because if you looked at it correctively, you couldn't understand Kemet or Egypt if you didn't understand Nubia, Talseti, Puanit, or what we today call Somalia. You couldn't understand Egypt without understanding these countries. But when they give it to you episodically, in an episode, then everybody can come in and claim that they did it. See, it's psychological. So this is why the 5-part series on the Moors and the 6-part series on West Africa is so important. Because it allows us to be able to flesh out this information in a way that we can follow the trend of African existence in order to understand the whole picture. So, class number 1 today. The class question is going to deal with where are the origins of the people of West Africa. So we're going to look at the origins of life in Africa, and then we're going to end today's class with the peopling of West Africa from the Nile Valley. Our next class, which is in August, is going to deal with the nations of Dar Tichet, Dar Walata, and Dar Tangent, which are 3 settlements which we'll talk about. But to understand this now, you have to understand geology. You have to understand that the Ice Age in the polar cap, the Ice Age in the polar cap, right here, okay, that's the polar cap. That's basically the 51st parallel north. That is where the Ice Age is going to exist. It's going to start about 1.75 million years ago. But by 6,000, what is going to happen is that they had some research done on the Sphinx that said that when the Ice Age existed in the polar caps, there was heavy, heavy rains in North Africa. Very heavy rains in North Africa. To the point that the Sphinx was covered up to her head. And the reason why I say her head is because the Sphinx is the head of a woman. It's not the head of a man. And many people believe the Sphinx existed thousands of years before the pyramids existed. But that's another side story. So you're going to have heavy rains that are going to touch the ground. This is a grassland. North Africa was beautiful. Grass, hippos, giraffes. No, it wasn't a desert. But what happened about 6,000 years ago, maybe 8,000 years ago, we don't know the dates for sure, is that when the Ice Age subsided and the heat of the sun began to heat the water, it destroyed the land, and dust was created that began to blow west. across North Africa that created the Sahara. But there were people living in this area. So in living in this area, people made a choice. African people either travel north or they travel south. And what's going to happen, what we're going to see, is that the group of people that travel south traveled to what we call southern Mauritania. And I'll show this to you as we go through these maps. But right here, this is going to be Mauritania right here. This country here is what we call Mauritania. But down in here, these Africans from Sahara are going to move down here to avoid the desert. Here, they're going to form the great kingdom. Over 400 nations, settlements are going to be in this area of southern Mauritania around 4000 BC. In southern Mauritania. They're going to develop what's called nation states. They're going to develop into a place where they create a king, queen, economic system, trading system. Eventually it's going to become a kingdom. However, what's also going to happen is that there are going to be other things that go on that's going to dismantle the effectiveness, but in fighting back against this ineffectiveness, the ancient kingdom of Ghana is going to be created in 300 AD. All black people. Well, nobody waiting for Eurasians with Islam to come in and develop universities of Sankore and in Timbuktu. They were already in existence. All they did was made it better. African people did. And the reason why the Muslim scholars of Eurasia went there was because of the history of these great schools. They went there because they knew they existed there. Did Islam add to it? Yes, it did. Islam added. Islam improved. So we're not saying they didn't improve. What we're saying is that they didn't invent it. And that becomes very important in terms of our perspective towards African people. In fact, what made Eurasians sophisticated in Islam was the African roots of Islam. Because they were nothing but a bunch of rather wild people who were sophisticated and civilized by the African nations, and then with the advent of this language that we call Afrabic or Arabic, that was given its grammar and syntax by a brother named Antara. Now this civilization, this spiritual system, now had a language, which is interesting because Islam is really one of the few religions that has a language specific to the religion. In other words, if you Chinese and you Muslim, you're going to speak Arabic. You can't worship Islam in another language. You have to speak Arabic to worship it. And that is because of the indigenous of this African language in the formation of Islam in the first place. So, here is Mauritania. And this is going to be our next class. Class number 2. Class number 3 is going to be medieval West. Now this is, remember when I told you that when we did class number 4 on the Moors, I said this is what everybody came for. But we had to do class 1, 2, and 3 before you could even understand what class 4 was going to be as it related to the Moors, Africans in Europe between 710 and 1492. I said you can't even understand that if you don't understand these other 3 classes. So now what I'm saying, class number 3 is what we all celebrate during Black History. The kingdoms of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. The kingdoms that start about 300 AD and last upwards until the 1500s with the Songhai Empire. But you need these other first 2 classes to understand how Ghana became so great so fast. It was already great. It just was going through turmoil. After thousands of years, it was going through turmoil. And so, to perfect the society, what the people did was take it to the next level, and by 300 AD, that's what we're going to call ancient Ghana. They're going to continue to perfect it. What's going to happen? Mali. What's going to happen after Mali? Songhai. But what you're looking at is the perfection of African scholarship and leadership in West Africa. Episodically, when they hit you with Islam, it'll throw you off. Islam did as much to build West Africa as aliens did to build Egypt. And I know there are people that may not care for that. But bring your documentation. I'm willing to adjust my thoughts. Bring your documentation, because I got mine. Class number 4, we're going to start some special focuses after. Because now we're stabilized. After class number 3, we're stable. You understand ancient Ghana, Mali, Songhai. You understand Dar Tichet, Dar Walata, Dar Tangent. And you're going to understand how they even came to this part of the world in the first place. So class number 4 is going to be special focus. And we're going to look at the Dogon as a particular culture that's going to rise up out of West Africa. Right 200 kilometers southeast of the bend of the Niger River, you're going to have the Dogon people. And the Dogon people are going to create a view of astronomical understandings and agricultural. They're going to have a system of philosophy. So in order to just show you in a capsule sense the greatness of West Africa, I'm taking the Dogon in particular. That's going to be the special focus for class number 4. Class number 5 is a class that unites us here in the United States with all language groups. And that is the importance of the spiritual system of the Yoruba in West Nigeria. And it becomes very important. What are the connections between the Orishas of the Yoruba spiritual system and the African spiritual systems of the Caribbean? And in that, you're going to see Santeria, Voodoo, Candomblé in Brazil, Obia in the English-speaking Caribbean, and the Baptist Church in America. Because even though Baptists may not want to admit it, yeah, you black. And your entire rhythm of presentation as it relates to your spiritual system is based in an African tradition.
That's right.
Baptist church is deep inside of that. And then on class number 6, I sort of kind of changed it from what I had. I wanted to look at the educational system of Timbuktu and the University of Sankore. I wanted to do something on education so that we could understand the University of Sankore, which is just a phenomenal university. And what existed in West Africa at this time, the scholars from around the world that came to this university to study or to teach. Because when you get here, now you can understand the Moors. Because this has been going on for a while. This is nothing new. Nobody was waiting for Islam. With due respect to Islam, which I have a great deal of respect for Islam, particularly the Islam of Africa, a lot of respect. And I'm not saying this disrespectfully. But what I'm saying is that black folk ain't waiting. This is what our ancestors called sacred science. And that becomes very important to understand. The same way with the physiologists, the same way with this perfume panther. Again, it goes back to the beauty of Christianity, the beauty of Judaism. They're beautiful. In fact, if people lived according to the way the books say, we'd be living in a great world. But the problem is that the interpretation of the religions is based on world domination and the oppression of other people. That's my problem with religions. I don't have another. People say, yo man, you talk about spirituality. What religion are you? Well, I don't have a. I have spirituality. But then what is spirit? You know, what is ritual? What is it that we're doing when we're doing this? And I just think all of these faith systems are beautiful, but folk just have so contaminated them because of their own insecurities. They've created a situation. So next class, yes, brother, please.
I couldn't find her first and last name.
Who?
And
Anick, Annick, Leguer. And it's called Scent.
got it.
And the book has other chapters in it that's really that's why I sell oil. Because I've always been into smells. That's another reason why my cousin gave it to me, because she knew I was always into smells. I always enjoyed scents. It's probably one of the first senses we really developed, even before sight. Scent was one of the first, because long before we could see, a baby smells. Baby smell mama. May not see mama, but if mama's in the room, baby can smell mama and will cry. But she won't, or he won't see the mother, but smell. Smell is one of the primitive senses that we developed for survival. Sight comes along, hearing comes along, but your olfactory bulbs in your brain is very important. Okay? Questions, comments? Yeah. That's why the DVD